In the dark heart of a forgotten land, Medusa roamed the ruins of an ancient city, her prison for centuries. The once great marble pillars had crumbled, overrun by vines and decay. The statues scattered throughout the landscape were not the work of sculptors, but victims of her cursed gaze, frozen in time. Medusa's serpentine hair writhed above her as she slithered between the wreckage, her body a haunting mix of human and monster. Her emerald eyes, filled with venom and sorrow, reflected the weight of her torment. Once a mortal woman graced with beauty, she had been a priestess of Athena, her golden hair and radiant face admired by all who saw her. But the god's cruelty knew no bounds. Her beauty had caught the eye of Poseidon, and her refusal to succumb to him earned her the wrath of Athena. Cursed and abandoned, Medusa had been condemned to an eternity as a monster. Yet tonight, the air was thick with an unsettling shift. Her prison was no longer a place of solitude. She felt it before she heard it, the faint tremors of footsteps reverberating through the earth. Someone was approaching. Over the centuries, there had been those foolish enough to seek her out, to claim her head as a trophy, thinking they could avoid her gaze or find some way to slay her. All had failed, their lifeless forms scattered across her domain. From the shadows, she saw him. A warrior clad in bronze armor, his face hidden behind a polished helm. His sword gleamed under the pale moonlight as he stepped forward, fearless and resolute. This was no ordinary soldier, he carried himself with the confidence of someone who had fought gods before. Medusa's lip curled in disdain. "You seek glory?" she hissed, her voice echoing through the empty ruins. The warrior did not flinch. He stopped a few paces from her, his gaze never meeting hers. "I seek an end," he said, his voice deep and calm. Medusa recoiled, surprised. Most sought her death for power, for fame. This one, though, seemed different. She lowered her head, her serpents hissing softly. "You speak in riddles, warrior. What end do you hope to find in this cursed place?" The man slowly removed his helm, revealing a face lined with age and battle scars. His eyes, however, were gentle, full of sadness rather than rage. "I have fought for years. I have slain beasts and kings alike, but my soul remains heavy. I seek the release only death can bring. And who better to grant it than you?" Medusa's gaze softened for a brief moment. She saw in him the same weariness that had long plagued her own existence. In him, she recognized a kindred spirit, another lost soul, trapped by fate. But there was no room for mercy in her heart. "Then look upon me," she whispered, her voice a haunting melody. "Look into my eyes and find your peace." The warrior raised his head, his eyes meeting hers. For a fleeting moment, Medusa saw a flash of sorrow pass through his expression before his body stiffened, muscles locking in place as the curse took hold. His skin turned to stone, a monument to his final wish. As the wind howled through the ruins, Medusa stood over the newest statue, her heart heavy with an ancient sadness. She had granted him the release he sought, but there would be no such mercy for her. In the shadows of the forgotten city, Medusa remained, alone, a monster in a world that had forsaken her, her curse never ending.
The winds howled through the cliffs, their mournful cry mixing with the rhythmic crashing of waves against jagged rocks below. Far from the reach of men, Medusa's lair lay hidden in the heart of a forgotten island, surrounded by a landscape as twisted as her soul. She had once been a woman, a priestess, a beauty unrivaled. Now she was a nightmare in flesh, cursed by the gods themselves. Medusa's lair was a graveyard of statues, each one bearing the eternal scream of those who had dared to look upon her face. The fools thought they could defeat her, bring her head back as a trophy. How many had tried over the centuries? Knights in gleaming armor, mercenaries, even kings. Each one had fallen to her cursed gaze, their bodies forever locked in stone, trapped in an instant of terror. But on this night, something stirred beyond the normal solitude. Medusa could feel it in the air, a presence unlike the others. Her serpentine hair hissed in agitation as she slithered through the winding corridors of her stone palace, moving silently, every movement graceful, yet laced with the threat of death. She reached the edge of a massive chamber, its walls lined with her collection of frozen souls. In the center, at the foot of her throne, stood a woman cloaked in shadow. Medusa's eyes narrowed. This was no warrior in shining armor. The intruder stood tall, unmoved by the eerie silence surrounding her, an aura of unyielding power radiating from her. "Who dares enter my domain?" Medusa's voice cut through the stillness, laced with venom and ancient fury. The woman stepped forward, her cloak fluttering slightly as the wind from the cliffs whipped through the broken windows. Her face remained hidden, but her voice carried an otherworldly calm. "I do not come as your enemy, Medusa." Medusa's serpents hissed louder, their anger rising. "Then why are you here? To mock me? To pity me? I am here to free you." Medusa laughed, a hollow, bitter sound. "Free me? From what? The curse that binds me, the hatred of the gods, or the fate that keeps me chained to this wretched place?" The woman reached up and pulled back her hood, revealing a face as ancient as time itself. Her eyes were pools of darkness, and her skin shimmered faintly under the moonlight. Medusa felt a strange sensation, something she hadn't felt in centuries. Recognition. This was not a mortal. This was something older, far more powerful. "I am Nemesis, goddess of retribution," the woman said softly, "and I know the injustice that was done to you." Medusa's heart twisted. The memory of her transformation flashed before her mind's eye. Poseidon's assault, Athena's cruel curse, the mocking laughter of the gods. Rage burned anew within her. "They took everything from me," she whispered, her voice cracking. "My beauty, my life, my soul." Nemesis nodded, her gaze filled with a cold, vengeful light. The gods often forget that justice is not theirs alone to wield. They wronged you, Medusa, but there is a way to exact retribution. Medusa hesitated, her gaze flicking to the statues that lined the chamber, testaments to her wrath, to her endless torment. "What must I do?" Nemesis stepped closer, her dark eyes gleaming. "Join me. Together, we will turn their power against them. We will strike fear into the hearts of the gods and make them tremble." Medusa felt the weight of the centuries lift ever so slightly, her rage surging. Could it be true? Could she finally have her vengeance? Her serpents, sensing her renewed strength, hissed with anticipation. "Then let them know," Medusa said, her voice rising like a storm. "Let the gods feel the terror they have wrought." In that moment, the island trembled and the sea churned. Nemesis raised her hand, and a dark portal swirled into existence. Together, they stepped through, leaving behind the silent statues and the forgotten ruins. The gods, watching from their thrones on Olympus, would soon know the wrath of Medusa once more. But this time, she would not be the hunted. She would be the storm. As Medusa and Nemesis emerged from the portal, they found themselves on the slopes of Mount Olympus. The air crackled with divine energy, the mountain's peak bathed in an ethereal light. In the distance, the gods' palatial stronghold loomed, its golden towers piercing the sky. But for the first time in centuries, that light seemed dim. The gods felt her presence. They knew she was coming. Medusa's serpents coiled tighter around her head, sensing the divine power that surrounded them. Her heart pounded with a mix of fear and fury, but Nemesis walked beside her, calm and unwavering. She was not afraid. The goddess of retribution had no fear, only purpose. "They won't give up their thrones without a fight," Nemesis warned, her voice low. "Zeus, Athena, and the others, they will seek to destroy you. They will use their full might to protect their empire." "I no longer care," Medusa hissed, her voice like a blade cutting through the air. "Let them try." With a wave of Nemesis' hand, the ground beneath them began to shift. Dark clouds gathered overhead, swirling into a violent storm. The wind howled, carrying with it the screams of the forgotten and the cursed. As lightning cracked through the sky, the gates of Olympus swung open, and the gods descended. Zeus, towering and majestic, stood at the front, his eyes burning with the fury of the heavens. Athena was beside him, her cold gaze fixed on Medusa. Behind them, a host of other gods and goddesses prepared for battle, their divine weapons glinting in the storm's light. Medusa, Zeus' voice boomed like thunder. You dare bring your fury here, to the realm of the gods? Medusa's heart clenched at the sight of Athena, the goddess who had condemned her to this monstrous fate. All the rage she had kept buried for centuries now surged within her like a wildfire. Her serpents writhed, hissing with fury. She did not respond to Zeus. Her eyes were locked on Athena. You did this to me, Medusa spat, her voice shaking with rage. You cursed me. You condemned me to live as a monster. Athena's gaze did not waver. You were punished for desecrating my temple, she said coldly. I gave you what you deserved. The words ignited something deep within Medusa. What I deserved, she screamed, her voice echoing across the mountain. You let Poseidon violate me. You did nothing to stop him, and when I refused to be his, you cursed me. The gods around them stirred, their divine aura growing darker. Zeus raised his hand, summoning a bolt of lightning that crackled in his palm. But before he could strike, Nemesis stepped forward. Enough, Nemesis said, her voice ringing with finality. The time for their punishment has come. The battle that followed was a clash of gods and fury. Medusa fought with a vengeance she had never known, her gaze turning any who dared meet it to stone. Warriors of Olympus, once thought invincible, fell one by one, their bodies frozen in eternal terror. Zeus hurled his thunderbolts. The ground beneath them cracked and split, and the sky raged in chaos. But Medusa was relentless, her fury matched only by the gods' desperation. As she advanced on Athena, the goddess raised her spear, her face filled with cold resolve. I will not be defeated by a monster, Athena hissed, lunging forward. But Medusa was ready. Her snakes lashed out, striking at the goddess's armor with deadly speed, and for the first time, Athena faltered. The battle raged around them, but in that moment, it was just the two of them, the cursed and the condemner. Athena's spear struck true, but it was Nemesis' betrayal that sealed Medusa's fate. As Medusa prepared to deliver the final blow, Nemesis' hand appeared from behind her, swift as a shadow. In a blur of motion, the goddess of retribution drew a blade and slashed across Medusa's neck. Medusa's eyes widened in shock, her fury turning to disbelief as her head fell from her shoulders. Time seemed to stop. Her body crumbled, and her serpents let out a final, mournful hiss before turning to stone. Nemesis caught Medusa's head before it hit the ground, her expression cold and unreadable. The gods watched in stunned silence as Nemesis raised Medusa's severed head, her hair of snakes still writhing with life. Zeus lowered his thunderbolt, his face a mixture of triumph and caution. Why, Nemesis? Athena demanded, her voice trembling with the weight of the betrayal. Nemesis turned, her dark eyes meeting Athena's. She was never meant to defeat you. She was a weapon, a tool of justice. And now, she will serve as a reminder to all of Olympus that even gods can be held accountable.